Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm super excited for our guest today. It's Erin Keating from Los Angeles in the US. Erin has spent the last 20 years in the TV business as an executive producer and development and production executive. Her passion for smart, brand-defining original programming led to zeitgeist-shaping shows like Portlandia, along with the first ever made-for-mobile scripted series. Her career has included senior creative roles at Snapchat, Big Beach TV, and IFC TV. Erin's company, Hotter Than Ever, awesome name, by the way, makes media and products that empower the authentic, messy, sexy, funny, and inspiring lives of women over 40. Erin has a podcast called Hotter Than Ever, where she has honest, authentic conversations about career and life and relationships and sex that empowers listeners to live the second half of their lives with as much passion and vitality as possible, just like she aims to do. Erin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited for our conversation today. And, I've outlined some of your career highlights, and I'd like to invite you to share a little bit more about yourself and your journey to get here, because I know there's a juicy story here. So I'm just going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. It's a long and winding road that brings me here today.
Yeah.
I was a writer performer in college. I studied theater. I was an actor, and I found I was producing everything I was in downtown in New York. I was like, I think this is a job.
Yeah.
And I love comedy. Comedy was really my first love. I would stay up late and watch Saturday Night Live when I was at my dad's house on the weekends. It was like my consolation prize for divorce. And and so I decided I would try to work on the business side in TV. And my first job in TV was at Comedy Central, which, does it still exist? It might. It's been folded into some larger something, just like everything else these days.
Right.
Everything's just merged.
Yeah.
And so I discovered that there was this job called development. And what that job is hearing ideas from creative people and deciding which ones are appropriate for your brand, spending the company's money to help develop those ideas into scripts or pilots or prototypes of some kind, and then selling that up internally inside the company, and hopefully getting your show that you're passionate about as an executive on the air, overseeing that show and gifting it to the world. And I was very lucky in my career, very hardworking, yes, but also there's luck involved in everything, where I really got to be close to so much incredible talent. And I got to work on so many amazing shows that you've probably mostly never heard of, because my niche was a sort of alternative comedy brand. Although I will say I worked for a producer early on who brought the Flight of the Conchords to the United States for the first time.
Really?
And so I watched those boys grow and blossom. And I know they're not Australian, but I know they're from New Zealand.
They're almost Australian.
Almost. They're right.
We
they're
claim
adjacent.
successful New Zealanders as being part of us Australians.
Okay, yes. Good. So that is sort of the brand of comedy that I love the most. A little bit offbeat, quirky, weird. And I did that for a very long time. And I went from the network side of the business to a production company. I worked for the production company that made Little Miss Sunshine and a whole bunch of other really darling indies, helping them start their TV division, selling a bunch of shows. Interesting to go from the buying side to the selling side. I can talk about that all day. And then Snapchat recruited me to help them figure out how to make shows for your phone for Gen Z.
Yeah.
So I ran scripted originals. Did you know there were scripted originals at Snapchat? Nobody does. And that's part of the reason I'm not there anymore. But I was there for 6 years, and
Yeah.
it was a wild ride through the sort of convergence of tech and media and television, and trying to figure out storytelling for a new medium. Was very heady and very
Yeah.
challenging and wonderful to program for such a huge audience in such an intimate medium. And then I got COVID,
Yeah.
and I got very sick, and it really, like a lot of people, it caused me to rethink my life. I think COVID was a turning point for so many of us.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's the wear and tear of endless Zoom meetings, or the being home for the first time when you haven't been home with your kids. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, these people, right? What have I been prioritizing?
Yeah.
So for me, it was sort of a wake up call to the things that I was avoiding, lying to myself about, neglecting. I really had thrown myself into work as a way to avoid a marriage that was failing, and the stresses of trying to raise two. I have twins; they're
Yeah.
12. So the stresses of trying to raise those kids, make enough money, be the stable one, and have this giant career, which was so fulfilling but so demanding. And if I let it, which I did, it took over, the bulk of my
Yeah.
life. And therefore, when I got sick, the biggest bouquet of flowers that I got was from my job in the
Yeah.
hospital, right?
Interesting.
And I was like,
Yeah.
this is meaningful. Sometimes the symbols are right in front of you.
Yeah.
So I wasn't intubated or anything. I just was one of the first people I was almost 50 at the time, and I was vaccinated. So it was not, I was one of the first wave of people who actually got
Yeah.
sick after being vaccinated.
Yeah.
And it was because I let it go too long. I didn't treat the symptoms right. And I kept pushing. And then even when I stopped pushing, I was like, yeah, I'm really not doing well. And I went to the hospital, and they were like, go right this way. And
Yeah.
I checked into a single room, and it felt like a spa to me. Even though I was real sick, I was
Yeah.
alone in a quiet place by myself with my thoughts for the
Yeah.
first time in what seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And I started to sort of question, like, why does this feel good? Why did I need the permission of getting
Exactly.
this sick, to slow down, stop, reflect? And my husband, who I am now divorced from, did not handle my illness well. And I think he got very scared about what life would look like without me. And instead of leaning into taking care of me, he was angry. And
Wow.
yeah, and I thought, this is not the in sickness and in health part that we had
Yeah.
promised to each
Yeah.
other. Things had been over, I think, for a long time, but it was one of those wake up calls where I was like, oh shit, if I died today. Sorry, can I curse on this podcast?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I really love to curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I died today, what would the story be? And
Yeah.
the story would be it looked good from the outside,
Yeah.
and that did not sit well with me when I got honest with myself. And so I got laid off from Snapchat. They dismantled our entire department. My ex and I did couples therapy for the last time, when we both agreed, it was very mutual. It was like, if this doesn't work this time, we're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we were done, and he moved out, and immediately I just felt a weight lifted. It was the right thing. We've been together we were married for 17 years.
Yeah. Wow. It's a long time to be with
That's
someone.
a long time. Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for the marriage. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for it. And I'm grateful for what I learned. And I'm grateful for how my expectations have changed about relationships, as a result
Mm.
of having been in one that wasn't, I don't know how to say it. It just, if I had loved myself more and felt better about myself, I wouldn't have been in that marriage,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, even though
Mm-hmm.
he's not a bad guy, all of that.
Sure.
It's,
Yeah.
it wasn't for me. It wasn't the right relationship for me,
Yeah.
ultimately. In the long haul, we're supposed to stay married for 50 years and celebrate, our 50th wedding anniversary. That
Yeah.
was not in the cards for us.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like we gave it a real good shot.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
yeah. I already know a little bit more about your story from listening to your podcast. So yeah, what comes next was actually
Yes.
really
Yes.
good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I really, I really let myself be free.
Yeah.
And I had not our sex life had died a long time before we split up, and
Yeah.
I was very out of touch with myself. But I had this glimmer of I think I used to be a sexual person.
Yeah.
I think I used to be really fun. I think I got real serious here for a while, but I think I
Yeah.
used to know how to have a good time. And so I really threw myself at dating and honestly at sex.
Yeah.
And not looking for a relationship, not looking for anything particularly conventional. Just who am I? Am I attractive?
Yeah.
I turned 50 3 days after I got out of the hospital. It was all this awful confluence of
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
COVID and then this mid-century mark. And
Yeah.
I was like, do I have any appeal as a middle-aged woman?
Yeah.
And I started to take really good care of myself. And I started to I started to feel sexy again. And I started to enjoy the presence of these men in my life. And I dated and slept with a bunch of guys. And I almost did it like a part-time job, to be honest, because I had something to prove to myself.
Yeah.
I was not looking for approval per se. I was looking for pleasure.
Yeah.
I was looking to reconnect with pleasure in my life and fun and a sense of coloring outside the lines, because I had been following every single rule and doing everything just right. And, for everything from the saving in my 401k for retirement to, showing up for the kids, back to school night to everything for everyone other than me.
Yeah.
And really all I could do when I had that intense job was work and parent. I didn't have the bandwidth for anything else. No interests, no hobbies, no workouts, no, we would travel, but then I would work on vacation.
Yeah.
I was that classic story of, God, if you want to be a successful woman in corporate America, you have to be twice as good as the men, and you have to grind and you have to be relentless with yourself.
Yeah.
And I worked on a team full of powerful, amazing women who were all doing the same thing. And, and we all kind of had a similar backlash reaction to that after we left the company, because we were exhausted. We were just all exhausted. And so, so I call my my adventures the year after my separation my Rumspringa. I don't know if you know.
No.
You don't have Amish people. You don't have
No.
Amish people in Australia, but Amish people are this very conservative, almost like Luddite, back to the land, anti-technology sect of Christianity, kind of from back in the Puritan days. And they let there were famously these reality TV shows about how they let their teenagers go wild for a period of time after they've come of age. They let them literally go totally crazy, and they party and they have sex and they do drugs and they just go nuts. and then they
Outside the
decide whether they want
community.
to outside the community, and then
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
decide if they want to come back
Oh.
and be part of community life.
Oh, right.
So, and that period of
Okay.
time is called a rumspringa. And so I
Okay.
claim that for myself because that's really what it looked like. I was just getting, charted up and going
Yeah.
out and partying and smoking weed and just like meeting all these guys and having sex. I was just like out of my mind and having the best time ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I learned about myself during that period was I really undersell myself.
Yeah.
And that I am totally attractive. If I'm attractive to myself,
Yeah.
then I'm attractive to people in the world. And that men, in my experience, like I don't have a perfect body. I don't, I have a 52-year-old woman's body. I mean, I take care of myself, but I'm not an athlete and I'm not a dieter. And, and what I found is, I'm heterosexual. So the people I'm attracted to are men and they like women.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the sort of programming that we have about how we have to be and who we have to be and what we have to be is total BS. Like we really, we've bought the consumer line about what is attractive when in reality, like these guys are in the same boat as we are. Like
Exactly.
they're not 26, although there were 26-year-olds hitting me up. Don't get me wrong. I just was not going to sleep with anyone who could be my child.
Yeah. Some boundaries.
I had a couple. Yeah, I had a couple boundaries. And through the journey of being, trying to check everything off my sexual bucket list.
Yeah.
I fell in love. And and that's like the first time I've really admitted that out loud in a public way. But like, I met someone who is nothing like me, who I'm crazy about, who's crazy about me, and we have insane chemistry. And we just have such a good time together and care for each other. And he's like the opposite of every man I've ever dated, and it's great for me.
Amazing.
And like, absolutely I have no idea where it will go or what will happen. Because I have kids and he doesn't. He's 10 years younger than me. He doesn't want kids. Like, we don't know how any of it's going to work out.
Yeah.
But right now, he says, let me be a refuge for you. Let me be the place where you go in your life, where no one's putting pressure on you.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, I feel so fortunate.
Yeah.
And it was clearly not my doing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow you get yourself together, you realign yourself, and then the universe, as woo-woo as this sounds, I really believe it.
Yeah.
The universe conspires to give you what you need.
Yeah.
But if you're lying to yourself and you're following these rules that you haven't excavated and you don't really even know you're following them, then you're giving mixed signals to the universe. Right. And you've kind of stopped your connection to the flow of life because you're grinding, you're controlling things, you're not in touch with what's really going on with you. For me, I was just trying to win, in this game that like was not set up by people like me. And by all accounts on the outside, I did win. And on the inside, it was fucking killing me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned these rules, and I know we're going to talk about these unconscious rules. And I wanted to ask you, when all of this was going on, all this change was going on in your life, and you were, I guess, breaking these unconscious rules, how did your community, your friends, your family respond to what was going on with you and those, I guess, railing against some of those unconscious rules?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm a pretty independent person. I think my friends were really happy for me.
Amazing.
They wouldn't have gone about it if in quite the way that I did.
Yeah.
But I certainly had a number of friends say, "Oh, there she is. Oh, there she is." Old friends.
Yeah.
say, welcome back, you
Mm.
know, because I
Mm.
really identified most in that period with myself in my late 20s when I
Mm-hmm.
was free and independent and an
Yeah.
artist and not trying to follow anybody else's rules and not trying to check any boxes.
Yeah.
And I think and I was a lot of fun back then, and I had stopped
Mm.
being fun. So I think my friends, I think they were really happy to have me back. And while I know that there are a lot of people who did not understand, my mother was staying with me. My mother was staying with me, and I was using her for free babysitting while she was here, and I was going out
Yeah.
really late and coming back even later. And I was all like dressed up all sexy, and she was like just looking at me like, okay, Erin. And I was like, you know what? I'm not a teenager. I
Yeah.
don't need your approval.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not gonna let anybody else's judgment stop me from living my life.
Yeah. Because I think that is something that does come into play a little bit if women are looking at kind of branching out beyond
Mm-hmm.
where the little space that they've been playing, and stepping out is can be very challenging.
Yes.
And how did you become empowered to do that? Like, how did you push yourself to do that after being, in a long-term relationship, being a mom, having this career? How did you like take those steps
It's
and feel
such a great
empowered to do
question
that? Yeah.
because, I mean, like everything, right? When you look back, it looks like you had a grand scheme and that you were working on a path
Yeah.
that was going to get you to where you are today. Um, but I just got really in touch with my instincts
Mm.
and with my desire
Mm.
and with um a part of me that I think I shut the door on when I stepped into corporate life,
Yeah.
which was um they're paying you to say a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're paying you to be a certain way.
Yeah.
You sit in this privileged seat, and I knew it was when I was in corporate life, and
Yeah.
maybe one day again I will sit in another seat like that. But I really felt like I was licensing my voice to other people on behalf of their success.
Mm.
So you're making your boss look good, you're making your corporation look good, you're
Yeah.
making the creators of the shows that you're working with look good. You're a diplomat. You're an advocate for something other than yourself.
Yeah.
And one thing that I really realized was I missed being an advocate for myself and feeling
Mm.
free to say and do what I wanted to do. I
Mm.
felt like once that uncorked,
Yeah.
where I decided I don't know what my professional life is going to look like, but I'm going to take a year and I'm going to figure out what it is.
Mm.
Um, I had gotten some severance and I had some savings, and I'm very
Yeah.
fortunate. And then I borrowed some money. I mean, I really was, because conceiving of going back to something, I would have gone back to whatever I went back to so inauthentically
Yeah.
and begrudgingly.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, let me find my voice again. Let me feel young again. Let
Mm.
me feel free. Um, and I also think like I had stopped being an artist in order to be an
Mm.
executive.
Mm-hmm.
And I really missed my artist self.
Yeah.
I really I loved her so much. I loved um how fun and outrageous and risk taking, and because I didn't have anything riding, right? When you're in your
Yeah.
20s, you don't have anything riding on your
That's right.
decisions.
Mm.
Um I missed her, and I got a glimpse of her, and I was like, yeah, I just found myself acting in ways that, had I not had the 20 years in between,
Yeah.
that this is the adult version of her.
Yeah.
And I liked that person.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so I
So,
don't know that I like conscientiously,
yeah.
strategically did anything. I just let myself get very in touch with my instincts and my desires. And I let that lead me for the first time in 20 years, because I was always trying to do everything right and buy the book and be a good girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there a process there? Like, was there anything specific that you did to uncover that?
Yes, I went on a retreat
Yeah.
in Italy.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
I did a very eat, pray, love
Yeah.
kind of moment. I always loved that book, and I was very jealous of
Yes.
Elizabeth Gilbert
Oh,
and her
yes.
journeys.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Um, and I had wanted to spend my 50th birthday in Italy. That was my big dream. And then a friend of
Uh-huh.
mine told me about this retreat with a woman named Sherry Salata, who had been Oprah's executive producer, and she was now sort of a guru in her own right. She's amazing.
Amazing.
She's become a friend, and she led this retreat that was part like Oprah lifestyle. You get a car, you
Yeah.
get a car. And and part, soul searching, self-help,
Yeah.
journaling, exercises, not physical exercises,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
prompts for writing,
Mm.
group activities, group sharing, and I had some ideas about what I wanted to do before I went.
Mm.
But there, she really pushed us to look at the crunchy parts of our lives, the
Yeah.
places where things felt like this is kind of stopped up, this is kind of stuck. What's going on with that thing? There's that
Yeah.
thing in your peripheral vision that's kind of always there. Why don't you turn and look at that,
Mm.
and see what that really is? And for me, that a lot of that was around self-expression and men.
Yeah.
And so those were the things that I decided to take on. And the men part, I'll have to say, it started very slowly online. So I started
Yeah.
flirting with people online. I started sexting with people online, total
Mm.
anonymity, like where I just was like, you know what, I'm just going to try this. Lots of people are doing this.
Yeah.
And then the more I got in touch with myself again, the more I felt like, okay, I think I could go try a date in real life.
Yeah.
Okay, like maybe I'm ready to have sex with somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
um, and sort of went about that pretty conscientiously, like choosing somebody who I was like, oh yeah, this person's kind of my
Mm.
type, and seemed
Mm.
safe and fun, and not a forever person, but
Yeah.
like someone who would be okay. And so I think it was gradual. And I also just really, I really wanted to start having conversations with other women about
Yeah.
this,
Mm.
because I think we live, especially when we're married,
Yeah.
these sort of separate, cloistered, private lives where
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot we do not talk about.
Yeah.
There is a lot that we keep to ourselves, and we keep in the cone of silence of our family life or our married life, that other people would be surprised about,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and that we get ashamed of, or that we get we feel like it would be a betrayal to talk to other people about it. I had a
Yeah.
therapist, always. I have always had and will always have a therapist,
Yeah.
because I did need somebody to talk to. But that's a slow process, right?
Mm. Mm.
And then just being willing to talk honestly with people was a big step.
Yeah.
Um, and to step into my own agency and power. I will say that, like, in my professional life, I was always somebody's right hand. I was always sort of the power behind the throne.
Yeah.
Um, and I I had to declare that done.
Yeah.
I just had to declare that that chapter of my life complete, and that I had nothing to be ashamed of and nothing to be shy about, and then I was prepared for whatever came next, because I
Mm.
had a track record of success, and there's no predictor of future success like past success, right?
That's right.
So I started to look at myself and go, actually, you're pretty successful. And if you try something else, you'll probably be successful at that too. And that's a confidence thing, right? Which is the other thing that we wanted to talk about here today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So what do you think keeps women from feeling confident and empowered? Really?
I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
I think we're conditioned from girlhood to be nice. I think we're conditioned to accommodate.
Totally.
Yeah. And to smooth the edges of life for everyone else. To, you don't want to be a bad girl. You don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
You don't, I think I was trained in my childhood to be, what would I'm struggling to describe what it is, but almost to be a receptor of adults' lives, feelings, monologues, experiences, and to sit and be an audience for adults. And hear them out in their thing and have them having their feelings and them, and I was trained, even if I was uncomfortable, to override those feelings, to get through. And in that way, I feel like I was trained in self-betrayal.
Yeah.
Because if your body is telling you, God, I'm fucking bored. How come this person isn't asking me anything about myself? Oh, they seem to be really like upset. Oh, they need me to nod and smile and validate. Okay. I guess I'm expected to make them feel better. Yeah, I think a lot of us get trained to be a positive mirror for other people, but what that requires is a self-negation and a not having our own back. When your body is telling you something, right? The truth lives in the body. So your body is telling you something and you learn to override that becomes a mechanism for success in some ways.
Yeah.
Because then you can tolerate uncomfortable situations. Like in the comedy world, there was just like people would say insane things, totally inappropriate things that in regular corporate life you get fired for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But because I was raised knowing how to deal with, other people's behavior and make the world comfortable for other people, I could sort of deal with these situations that other people who have better boundaries and more self-esteem or whatever, they would run screaming and they'd be like, not for me. But for me, I was like, okay, yes, that's how people act. And so I'm just going to absorb it. I had a boss who told me, he could see when I was wearing my Pardon My Feminism shirt, like my invisible Pardon My Feminism shirt. He could just see it on my face that I was outraged by what was going on in the room, but I was keeping it together.
Yeah.
Because it was important talent or it was some relationship that we wanted to build something out of, So I think stopping that practice of self-negation and learning to actually have your own back is a really important piece. I also think women feel like they need to know everything before they do anything.
That is huge, isn't it? That is a huge difference between men and women.
Yeah. I mean, I would read a job listing.
Yeah.
Right. I would read a job listing and go, well, I could do
have that
this, and this, but I really don't know anything about these other, 30% of what the job is. And usually in my experience, a man would read that and go, yeah, fuck it. I can learn that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want that job. That's bigger than me, but that's great. I can do that. And women will be like, I'm not even going to apply because I'm not qualified. It says right here, you need 10 years and I have 7 years.
Yes.
Oh my we gosh, really, so we're so by the book in so many ways, that it really defeats us.
Absolutely.
I thought I had to know how to read before first grade. I told my mom, It's like, I can't go. I was 6. I can't go because I don't know how to read. She's like, honey, they teach you how to read. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I'm qualified then for first grade.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
I know, right? Yeah. So are these part of these unconscious rules that
Yes.
is that why we act like that? Because I totally relate to what you just said about particularly job applications.
Oof.
Like, yeah. It's just, but it
Yeah, I
applies to
think
so
that
many other things.
totally. I think the unconscious rules show up when you hear yourself saying, I can't because.
Mm.
So in your head, oh, I could never go to Europe because I don't speak French.
Yeah.
Oh, I could never wear that print because
Yes.
it's just like not me.
Yeah.
I can never be I had a very powerful woman I know say to me, I don't know if I could be a CEO. I could be a COO, but I
Yeah.
don't know if I could be a CEO. And in my mind, she could do anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
she's told herself a story about what these letters mean, what this role
Exactly.
is.
Exactly.
And I'm like, of course you can be a CEO. Of course you can. Like more than anyone I've ever known, this person can be a CEO. So it's really I can't because I also think your body gives you information
Yes.
about unconscious rules. Your
Yes.
body reacts to certain situations. I know for a long time I felt like I had to look a certain way, I had to be a certain weight, I had to have a certain body in order
Yeah.
to, for me, I had a skinny moment, and that's when I moved to Los Angeles from New York.
Yeah.
And I think that I was being ruled by these unconscious rules where I said to myself, okay, now I look right for LA.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't skinny, which I'm not now, like, and I'm perfectly successful, like I was like, I'll never make it work in LA. I can't because
Wow.
I carry 30 extra pounds or whatever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
there's so many of those I can't because. And I'd just say, look at those. I
Yeah.
think we get something out of holding ourselves back.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it
I
keeps
think
us
we stay
safe,
safe.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we stay
Yeah.
safe. I think we don't get embarrassed. We don't go
Mm.
out on a limb. We don't feel uncomfortable. Um,
Mm.
but there is no growth without discomfort.
Absolutely.
And there
But
are worse things
yeah.
in life than awkwardness.
Yeah. 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 Totally. Definitely. But I think also part of it too, particularly in those corporate workplaces where you don't feel like you're going to be supported by
Right.
others, by the men in the room, right?
Right.
There is sometimes an aspect of that because there's been plenty of times I have a corporate background and yeah, you'd be the only female in the room and there wasn't a feeling that you would be supported if you had an opinion that was not part of the status quo.
Right. And you
So,
have to say to yourself,
yeah.
is it more important to say the thing
Mm,
than to be supported and liked?
yeah.
Because we are really scared of not being liked.
Yes.
You know, our
Yeah.
whole currency as women, I think, is based on being likable.
Yeah.
And that's not the case with men.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
can be really unlikable and a real piece of work and
Yeah.
be really successful.
Yeah.
I think the society places so many burdens on women and
Mm,
so many sort of mixed expectations on women in authority. Well, how am I going to be
mm,
the boss if everyone has to like everything I do and say?
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think it helps to have a sense of mission and purpose. Um,
Mm,
you know, for me, I just always wanted to make really high quality work.
yeah.
And things that and tell stories that would resonate with the audience that it was intended to resonate with.
Mm,
And sometimes that requires telling your partners or telling your vendors or telling the artists that you're working with or whoever it is, yeah, this is not good enough. Try
mm,
harder.
mm,
Do better.
mm,
And we
yeah.
hate that. And I trained a
Exactly.
number of people under me. I really love being in a position of leadership and mentorship and management,
Yeah.
where I could really tell young people how to communicate what they needed to communicate without, there is a diplomacy to saying no
Yeah.
and to holding the bar really high. And
Exactly.
everyone is grateful for it at the end of the day. But in the interim, you might have to be a little unlikable,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
The job is
Exactly.
not to be likable and get through all your emails. The job is to do the job.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, I wanted to ask you, Erin, part of, I guess, the message that you have with Hotter Than Ever is that you want to empower women to take their lives into their own hands and reshape their second act
Yeah.
for the better, whatever it looks like to them. So what does that look like? How do women become more empowered? I know that definitely when you get in over 50, over 40, there is a sense of you don't care anymore what other people think,
Yes.
to an extent. For some people, I think for some
Yes.
people, some women, it takes a bit longer to get there. So how can we feel more empowered to do that, to do like I look at what you've done in terms of leaving that long-term relationship, going to Italy, traveling, taking that year. Like there's a lot of courage involved in doing that. It's stepping outside the norm, I
Yeah.
guess, probably for you and your peers. And it sounds like a hell of a lot of fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, but you know, how to feel empowered to do that and how to step out. What's some advice that you can pass on?
We grow at the speed of pain, right?
Mm, mm.
So you may not be suffering enough to be willing to change.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's
Yeah,
heavy.
it is. Yeah.
And you may be suffering enough, but you may not be willing to admit to yourself the degree to which you're suffering.
Mm.
For me, when I really looked at my life and when I had COVID, I realized I could die tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's one beautiful gift of illness. I'm glad that it didn't take cancer or
Yeah.
whatever thing that happens to other people,
Yeah.
where they have this sort of life-changing revelation that I did. But you get one life and you don't know when it's going to end. And do you want to live it following the rules and suffering in silence?
Yeah.
Or are you willing to risk discomfort in order to be fulfilled, in order to have joy, to feel free, and to live into who you are, who you uniquely are? I really believe that each of us is given gifts and talents and abilities, and our job is to identify what those things are and make use of them. And if you suspect that you have talents and gifts and abilities and you're not using them, you're probably pretty unhappy.
Yeah.
And the question is, are you unhappy enough to be willing to break some of the rules that you've been following? And I think a lot of women, and one thing that I've learned, I've heard again and again from interviewing people on the Hotter Than Ever podcast, really accomplished, incredible women talking about they don't know what they want, or they didn't know what they want, or they knew what they wanted, but they were willing to do it for someone else,
Yeah.
but not for themselves.
Yeah.
They were willing to step out of their comfort zone for someone else, but not for themselves. And eventually they realized, oh, I can do this for me too. And I do think we're so other facing. We're so of service. We're so the glue that keeps our communities and our families and our workplaces together,
Yeah.
out of caring and love and a human touch that women bring to life.
Yeah.
Where are you not giving that to yourself? We find it very easy to give it to other people.
Yeah.
You deserve that also. And the world deserves your gifts. The world deserves your gifts. And you're depriving the world of the best of you if you're just bottling it up and sitting on it. And like, you're an incredible artist, but you stopped making art because the logistics of life, you know, the operational problems of being an artist, right? But every time you go to a museum, you have this like physical sense of longing and loss. You know, you can do something about that.
Yeah.
It just requires a little discomfort. And there's, honestly, I think we're so afraid of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We're so afraid of awkwardness and weird vibes and judgment. And, you know, for me, like showing up as three-dimensionally as I am these days, there are so many people in my professional life who I had very nice acquaintance type of relationships with. And so many of them have reached out to me since I started being more three-dimensional and sharing my real self and my real feelings. And I have developed relationships with people on the back of that authenticity that I would never have had, that I didn't even know people cared about me in the way that they care about me, or were, you know, rooting for me in the way that they're, I mean, you just don't know until you put it out there. If you're hiding, then everybody's hiding and everything is hidden.
Yeah. Wow, Erin, there's quite a few things you have said today that have just blown my mind.
Honestly, I don't know where it comes from, but I feel it and I think it and I believe it. And I want to share it because you get one shot at this.
Yeah.
You know, and we all deserve to be having way more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, wow. I have loved our conversation today, Erin. I wish it didn't have to end, but unfortunately we do have time that we have.
Yes, I could talk to you forever.
By.
Thank you so much for creating this forum for amazing conversations and empowering women.
Oh, thank you.
You are doing a great service to us.
Thank you, Erin. And so are you. Yeah, so are you. So if my listeners want to check you out, we know you have your podcast, Hotter Than Ever, which I absolutely recommend people should be following, listening to. It's amazing. And where else can people find you, Erin?
They can find me on Instagram at Hotter Than Ever Pod. Please follow me, DM me. Let's have a conversation. And, you know, I have more things in the works that celebrate the lives of women over 40, and I can't wait to share them with the world. So stay tuned.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you're bringing into the world, Erin, because I think it's going to be incredible. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts, or the follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you can get each new episode delivered to you every single week. If you like free stuff, and who doesn't, then head over to susiegarden.com and grab my 8 essential age-defying secrets every woman over 40 should know right now. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.